Welcome to this full moon reading in May 2024. So I just drew 3 cards and I'm going to show you the reading, and we have our friend comes up again as he tends to do on these full moon sessions, and we'll see what message he has to bring, and I'll see what message wants to come through. Here are the 3 cards. Let's have a look. All right. So we've got the reversed King of Cups, the Devil, and the Chariot. Those 3 cards are our reading. Let's see if we can't call in some guidance. Just call in a little bit of higher wisdom, and we shall share whatever needs to come through. Thanks for joining me. First of all, let's take this king, and it seems to be that today there is a little story to tell. And this story is a story about our masculine, emotional, expressive self. This is a story about how we share our feelings, how we share who we are, how we share our desires, our dreams, how we express our sensitivity. We feel mature in some ways emotionally, and yet in other ways we can recognize our immaturity. This king is walking with us upside down because he's saying there is an immature side of us that needs to be looked at. There is a complex set of emotional reactions which we are not expressing clearly, which we're afraid of sharing to the world. There are some things we just don't speak out. There are some things that are very difficult for us to share. And he's saying that we may have a habit of sharing our emotional and sensitive self in a not so tempered way, a not so balanced way. We may get carried away. We may have lost our emotional balance and expressed ourselves emotionally in ways which are not relative to how mature we consider ourselves to be, we would like to be, and we're showing maybe a more egotistical, immature, emotional face to the world. Take a look. Take a look, he says, at the ways that we do that. Take a look at the different ways that we interact with different people in our life, especially those close people, especially those people who might trigger us emotionally, who might challenge us to express and speak our emotional truth and speak our sensitivity and our desires. Take a look at that inhibition that we feel, and the fears and the self-doubts that we feel when it comes to being our mature emotional selves. Take a look at that. Take a look at how we may feel the ocean of emotionality splash like a forceful wave on our bodies and on our faces, and knock us off our feet sometimes, and take us to a space where we don't feel in control. Allow ourselves to recognize those moments where the ego takes over, where we are not acting out of a mature higher self. We're not following an emotional heart, but we're following an egotistical fear. And we may express ourselves and express stories inside of our relationships with other people that specifically show us the fears that we have, instead of allowing us to express the higher nature of our love, or the deeper, more honest nature of our what would be mature emotional self. We're expressing ourselves out of fear and out of doubt. There may be a protective nature to our expression. We may express our immaturity or our emotions immaturely in a way which has the excuse of protection, or the excuse of being there for somebody else. But this is not our balanced self. This is not the truth that we want to share with the world. We're not really sharing from a level of love, and this king holds love as the highest point of his emotional expression and his sensitivity. And there's something holding him back, there's something inhibiting his love. And the devil comes to say, come to me, come into the dark shadows where I live, come into the darkness and get naked. The devil says, I will show you how you are attached to the fears. I will show you exactly what you're afraid of. I'll encourage you to get naked, to take off all of the layers so that you can see and be naked in front of me. And that will allow you to see how you squash your own passion, how you kill your fire, how you inhibit your own growth, how you hold yourself back, and all of the obstacles that are your many mechanisms of self-sabotage and your many mechanisms of holding back the more higher, the more beautiful, the more inspirational version of your emotional expression. Come, I'll show you those habits. I will show you the habits that you have that are even hidden to your vision, but you have to be willing to sit in the darkness with me. He says you have to be willing to feel that discomfort of the fire that you are holding back from yourself. He asks us to become so brutally honest in a space which is not necessarily easy for us. He asks us to see how we choose to be trapped to old stories and old patterns. And he's asking us to be very clear, be really specific about this, be incredibly precise about what it is that you are holding on to, what it is that's tying you down and holding you back from your growth, from your higher expression of love, and from your deeper version of yourself. Come, he says, I am not the way, I am not the path, I am just the light shining upon that darker part of you that you are afraid to see, that you do not want to look at, but you definitely can benefit from my gift of showing you your attachment to the darkness I represent. Are we ready to see our fears? Are we ready to jump in to face the dark mirror of ourselves? Are we ready to hold space for ourselves emotionally, like the king really can do, like we know we can do? Are we ready to see it? Are we ready to own the attachments? Are we ready to stop the outward blame in the world? Are we ready to claim all of our doubts and fears so that we can release them? You cannot let go of what you don't claim first. You cannot release and surrender what is not consciously held. You have to be consciously aware of what you're unconsciously clinging to so that you can see the holding on and experience the letting go. and choose the letting go and embrace the darkness that doesn't have to be an obstacle, that can be an enlightening experience, so that we can move clearly forward in our lives, so that we can take our path and make and create some movement, some inner growth. It's not about this and that and doing and the other stories that we have, and all of the lists and the duties and all of those activities that needs to be done. They are wonderful. Let's do them in that time, but do not sacrifice that brutal honesty with yourself. Do not sacrifice your own connection to your emotional body, so that you can hear the lessons that want to come from within, and so that you can recognize how those emotional reactions are here to teach us about ourselves, to teach us about what we hold on to, what we feel afraid of, what we cling to, and what we are reactive towards in the world. Take a look recently over these last few days. There's undoubtedly been one or two experiences where you can say, well, I really, my insecurities, my doubts, my immaturity really shone in that moment, didn't it? Oh wow, that's not the great version of me. Take time to embrace your darker habits, not so that you can hold on to them forever, so that you can be clear of what needs to be released, what needs to be let go of. Don't be afraid of that darker sphinx, or just cling on the one-sidedness of our energy. We are beings inside of duality, and do not have to run away from the duality that we need to dominate, in a way which is not controlling, it's not manipulating, it's just recognizing that this is an ability we all have. This is a conscious choice that we all have to embrace both dark and light in the world. We do not have to judge ourselves for being egotistical beings. We do not have to fight with ourselves for being selfish individuals. We need to recognize those traits that are holding us back from expressing a deeper and more and clearer version of love, so that we can hold in our heart not just a balanced reality, but a truthful reality that feels so powerful inside, and we can channel that guidance that we know that we can touch, we can feel, we can hear, and we can even see in the world as it comes to us through our interactions with people. We need to move forward. The Chariot speaks about growth and movement, and about speeding things up a little bit. This isn't a speed of haste or just impatience. It's a speed of let's allow this movement to continue. Let's take off the handbrake of our lives and watch as we start rolling towards a very clear loving expression of ourselves. Let's choose that loving expression of ourselves and observe all the unconscious ways that we might be choosing just the opposite, not on purpose, but on autopilot, not deliberately creating emotional imbalance in our environment, but unconsciously reflecting that to other people. And this reading is very much about this king embodying a greater and sharing a greater expression of his love. And so this reading is going to be very specific to our more intimate and loving relationships with family, close friends, and those people we have around us, as well as ourselves, and recognize that those are the relationships which are going to be triggering us on one front, and we may also be influencing in a more negative way on another front. And I would love to hear your comments and maybe an experience or two that might relate to how in this last time of our lives, or in this last few days maybe, we may have shared an expression that is an expression of an emotional reaction really stemming and grounded in fear and grounded in doubt more than grounded in love. The expression of sharing some of our vulnerability in a communal and positive but safe space, but also just the expression of it and getting it out there and voicing, oh yes, I'm attached to this fear. This is when we start to embody that king in a more masculine, upright way, in a way which feels more balanced and more mature. This is where we're not cowering or fearing to share our truth, but we're saying, oh, I can see that. It doesn't have to be a fearful expression, because even when we're sharing our fears, because we all have the same ones, we all have the same insecurities, we all have the same doubts, and we all have very similar fears. So how can the expression of that then cause more harm to ourselves? If we're afraid of that, it can't. It can only help connect us and allow other people to shine a light upon their darkness. And this is the gift the devil brings us, not to be afraid, but to show us how afraid we may already unconsciously be. And those fears need to be seen so that we can accelerate our growth and our movement right now. It doesn't matter how old and how young we are, there's always growth and movement, and there's always this pull, this magnetic pull towards a greater version of love and a greater, more beautiful version of ourselves. Have a wonderful day, week, and month.